Welcome to this episode of Data Insight. We are going to be talking about managing the love-hate relationship that we have with data today, which seems appropriate considering it's Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there. Um, couple things. So one, I know that there's a black smudge on my head. It's also Ash Wednesday, so that isn't lost on me. Two, we will be sending out a recording of this at the end. And the third piece, if you have questions, please type them into the question. There's like a Q&A box that you'll see in the Zoom controls. You can type them in there. We'll get to them at the end. If we run out of time, we will email you the answers to those questions. I love a good webinar. I just don't like them to be an hour long. So we're trying to get through a bunch of information in about 35 minutes. Hopefully just making the most of our time together. All right. So who's we? I'm Olivia. I'm your normal host here at Data Insight. And I have two of my favorite teammates with me, Alex Corpita and Asia Sanders. You have seen them on other episodes of Data Insight. So we're getting the gang back together and hopefully giving you guys some good tidbits of information to celebrate and love on this Valentine's Day. So hey guys, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Olivia, thanks for having us. I've got my formal flannel on, so I'm ready to rock.
Thanks for inviting us to come along and talk about the love we have for our data with a little bit of hate sprinkled in. But I have my little heart necklace on and my red shirt, all prepped to talk about love today.
See, I thought my red sweater, well, it turns out it's an orange sweater, but I thought it was red, so I couldn't wear mine today. But I appreciate you being festive and your formal
I
flannel, Alex, I think.
yeah, I tried.
Great.
You know, it's a big day when it comes out.
As you can see, the three of us, we work great together. We love talking about data together, which is what brought us all together. But also, one of the things I love about Validity is just all the people I get to work with. So thrilled to have you guys here. But let's dive into the goods. All right, so short agenda for you today. Again, top 3 love, hate data management moments. We're going to start off with data comparison, talk about something in importing, and then also merging data. The other thing I should mention is that we're going to be flipping screens a little bit here today. We're going to be doing some live demos. Things can go wrong. I am not great at flipping screens on a Zoom call, but we're going to give it my best shot. So I will be asking Alex and Asia to just confirm that we're seeing the right screen as we're going through.
Add flipping Zoom screens to the hate section.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so true to data insight, I like to figure out what's going on with you guys. I want to know what you're going through. And so we have this nice themed question for you today that Jules on the back end here is popping up for you. And we just want to know what you would rate your relationship with your Salesforce data. Are you madly in love or are you heartbroken? Maybe you're dancing around somewhere in the friend zone or you are a full-on frenemy. But I want to know. And actually, this was a take on one of our poll questions from research, just what do you rate your confidence in your data? So we just had a little fun with that with our theme. And it looks like you guys are all weighing in pretty quick, which is great because again, we're trying to go fast. We're going to have some other polls that we do throughout the session as well, just to get a feel. And then typically toward the end of the year, we'd like to, get all this stuff, all the insights that we've gotten from you guys and package it up and just let you know, this is what you were saying throughout the year and what we learned from you, in addition to our other research. All right, so it looks like, nobody is madly in love. That's sad.
Full one.
Nobody is in love. We are heavy in the friend zone and frenemy area with a couple heartbreaks on the horizon. So we got to get it together. We need to bring the love back to this show here. All right. Well, that was fun. Thank you guys for participating. I hope you are as quick to participate in the next polls. I have the pleasure of talking about our first hate ship with data. All right, so mine is around data comparison and append. Now, I've worked with data as a customer success professional now on product marketing side of things. And one of the things I'm constantly finding myself encountering is somebody's giving me a spreadsheet of data and they're saying, hey, can you tell me what Salesforce says about this record? Or is it in Salesforce? Or maybe I know it's in Salesforce, but I need to get out some information. Can you help me with this? And it's frustrating because it's, there's not a lot of options out there. And we'll talk about that in a second. But what I wanted to know first and foremost was, again, were you guys experiencing this? Were other people out there asking this question? And since I couldn't poll you before the session, I went out to Trailhead to see what was being said. And this is what I found. So I am not alone in this, which makes me feel good. And these are directly from Trailhead questions that they put out there. So I need to compare a list of leads in Excel with current records in Salesforce. Pretty common. I have 3,000 leads and our marketing department wants to action on them, but they want to know first if these leads in the spreadsheet already exist in Salesforce as leads or contacts. So a little bit more complex. I have an Excel spreadsheet of 100 names and I want to compare these 100 names with the contacts in Salesforce to see how many are in our database for whatever reason. And I need to take an email address from an order system, compare it to the emails in Salesforce. If there's a lead record that matches, I need to have the owner of that lead record, that name, pulled back and put into the spreadsheet that I'm working with, which is very similar to what I do. This is actually mine out there. This happens a lot too, where I've exported a report from Salesforce. I've made some modifications to it, maybe added records, removed records, changed some information. And then I realized, oops, I forgot to pull out a really important field. So how do I get that field of information into my spreadsheet without going back and recreating this report and then having to do all that manual work again? And then this one I'm bringing up not because the love moment I have for you is going to solve it, but there is a love moment I can tell you about that's going to solve this. I just thought it was interesting that this also came up when I was searching for solutions like this and just, answers to stuff like this. And this one's about taking some existing leads in Salesforce and comparing it to person accounts that are also in Salesforce and comparing on that email value. So I'm going to show you what we have, what your options are for Salesforce, from Validity. But before we do that, let's do another poll. So this one, I want to know if I'm alone or not. So have you guys ever been in a situation where you needed to compare data in a spreadsheet to stuff in Salesforce, or maybe cross-compare your objects? Wow, this is a resounding yes. Everybody right away said yes. So, well, good, because I have a solution for you today.
And Olivia, I wanted to just add a little bit of additional color as to why some of the Salesforce community might have been searching for that lead use case that you mentioned. I think it's
Yeah.
because we're so conditioned to work with external data for internal Salesforce needs. And I also think that's a really good example of why the App Exchange exists, because without knowing that solutions like ours exist, opt for that export import style, even if it's data from Salesforce that's being compared to data within Salesforce. And
Mhm.
tools like DemandTools and similar nature give you those more efficient ways to get those tried and true ways of how we've always gotten things done, export import, done without having to do all of those additional steps.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And actually, um, especially about the App Exchange and why there's such this large partnership out there in the Salesforce ecosystem. You're not going to get everything you need from Salesforce. That would be naive of us to think that Salesforce is going to just develop every last little thing that we need. So they were smart enough to say, there's a whole bunch of really smart people out there that can develop these things and just extend our ecosystem and the Ohana and have all these great resources out there. So I am glad that we're a part of that, actually, and that we can solve problems that people are experiencing day in and day out. Let me go over to what your Salesforce options are. And really, the sad truth is there's no existing Salesforce tool that is going to let you compare an external spreadsheet of data to Salesforce and then extract information about those records. So really what you're working with right now is workarounds. And the most common response that I saw to these trailhead questions before I got there was to either create and run code in your org, which no thanks, I don't do code. I couldn't tell you if the code was right, wouldn't know if it was actually doing what I wanted it to do. So it's not really an option for me. Or I've got to use VLOOKUP in a spreadsheet, which if we're thinking about that, I've got to extract data from Salesforce to then put in a spreadsheet to compare against other data in a spreadsheet. And that just makes me cringe a little bit, because anytime you're asking me to extract data and work with it, like, I don't want to. I want to keep it where it is, nice and safe and sound, and not prone to error. So the love moment here is that DemandTools does have a tool for you to do this. Again, a nod to why there is such a huge partner network with Salesforce. And you can see the different modules that DemandTools has listed here on the screen. The one that I'm talking about today is going to be Match, but the one that I alluded to that I said I wasn't going to discuss, but is it solve that sixth bullet point of comparing your existing leads to your contacts or accounts, would be the one right above here called Convert. So that, just a little spoiler there, I'm not going to show it, but that's out there for you to do that comparison. Very easy to use. So I actually want to show you. Was that as clunky as it felt?
That
I
was
want to show
great,
you.
Olivia. Add it to the love section now.
Thank you. Just what match look like, because a lot of people are like, okay, you say you can do this, but how hard is it? Like, do I have to write SQL queries or SOQL queries? Like, what's the deal? Super easy. All I have to do, and I've loaded up all the settings here so we can get through this quickly. I loaded up my file. It can be Excel, CSV. I can actually attach to another Salesforce org if I want to pull the data in. choose the object I want to compare against, and then I can tell the system, you know, what records we want to select. So right now I have it parsed down to just things in Ohio. That's where I am. And it's just a small set of data for us to run against today. But where the real power is in this for me is not only the comparison, but over here on the right where you see these fields to show on the preview. You guys are seeing my demand tool screen still, right?
Yes,
Good.
we are.
All right. But this side allows me to say, okay, if I find a match, what fields of information do I want brought back to my spreadsheet and appended to the data that I have? So I can pull things, since I'm looking at the contact, I can pull contact fields, I can pull associated account fields. So if I wanted to go down and grab like the account name, it's there for me to pull in. Okay, so I can really get granular here and get the information I want. One of the other things I like is that I can choose what fields I match on. And it's not just a one and done thing. I can, you know, go through my best practice of rigid to loose. So let's find those matches that are pretty obvious. And if I want to, I can stop there. Or I can have these multiple match steps. So I can do the comparison, one process, multiple comparison steps, and just really feel confident that I'm getting out, you know, the most matches that I can find. So as you can see with my match steps, I'm scaling down a little bit in what fields I'm matching on, changing them up, employing some different mapping types, same things that you're going to see in the dedupe module. And then finally, I'm like, oh, okay, let's just match on email. So I can go as granular as I want to, or as wide open as I want to. And then what I like about the results, and I'm just going to speak through how this is processing a little bit, is it's going to show me where there were no matches, where I had just one match to the record in my spreadsheet that's in Salesforce, or where Salesforce brought back multiple matches. So total, I only have 57 records in here. I've got 7 records that just match to one record inside of Salesforce. And on the left, this is my input data. On the right, this is all the information I asked for it to bring me back from Salesforce from the record that it matched against. And then here's with my multiples. So you can see I have a bit of a dupe issue here on purpose, but you know, I've matched a whole bunch of different records. So I can pull all that information out and put it into my spreadsheet. And I get these really cool export options where I can do everything, or I can just do a subset down here. So if I just wanted the ones that had no matches, because I'm like, okay, I know this stuff isn't in here, so that's the stuff I'm going to work with, or that's the stuff that I'm going to, you know, I need to work to get into Salesforce. It's just very easy for me to understand what the process is for me next. And this isn't writing anything into Salesforce. It is just pulling the information out. And here's the spreadsheet. So on the left-hand side, this is what I started with, B, C, D, and E. And then this was added from, all this stuff over here was added from Match when I ran my process. So there I have it. I no longer have to struggle with how the heck do I compare this information and get information out that wasn't in my spreadsheet to begin with.
So you're telling me, Olivia, that I don't have to export my data out of Salesforce and then run a VLOOKUP with my other spreadsheet, all within Excel. I can just do that using Match.
That's what I'm telling you.
How wonderful is that?
Believe it or not.
I'm feeling the love.
I'm starting
I
to
don't
feel the
know
love.
about you guys. I'm feeling the love.
I'm feeling it. I
Let's
do.
keep this
And
love train going.
well, this is like my superpower. People will say this to me like, oh, I've got it, you know, I've got this information. I can't get it out. I'm like, I can. They can show you exactly how to do it. And they don't believe me until I give them the spreadsheet. So I love it. It's one of my favorite tools. If you haven't checked it out, be sure to do so. And we'll tell you this probably multiple times, but you can get a trial of this. So you can go and try it out for yourself to see how it works. All right, I'm going to pass the range. You should be back on my love screen here. I'm going to move over to Mr. Alex. What do you hate?
Yeah, well, Olivia, what we're going to talk about now is very similar to what you just mentioned. Rather than, we're still comparing data like you just mentioned. However, with you taking data out of Salesforce instead, now we're going to take the data into Salesforce. So this is for data imports. And for context of everybody that's on the line, I'm a solutions engineer over here at Validity. So I have the pleasure of working with prospective customers on the pre-sales side of things. So I get to hear all of the problems that people are experiencing with data quality. And this is hands down one of the top issues that people come with because data imports are so plenty. It's almost like the wild, wild west with how data gets into Salesforce, and we kind of have to cowboy wrangle it together. But data imports being so prevalent, whether it's webinars that you're running, trade shows, just purchasing lists, migrations, things of that nature, oftentimes we have a large set of data that sits outside of Salesforce that needs to be matched to data inside of Salesforce before we enter it in, so that we don't risk entering in new duplicates and we can consolidate our data so I don't have fragmentation. Data over here for one individual that is also the same individual over here that is not communicated or is not consolidated. Some of the more specific things that I see, and I actually stole one of your bullets, Olivia, because it does reign true for this piece here. I know, I'm sorry, which is the first one. And this is a very common thing that we see, which is people coming home from trade shows. They have this list of 3,000 people that they need to add it into Salesforce, but they need to see if that list lives as leads or contacts, or if it has a matching account already. Some more vague approaches here is just having a list of people with limited information on it. Maybe you only have a last name, title, and a company. You're missing crucial or vital data points like email addresses or phone numbers. How do I data that already lives in Salesforce with that missing information? This one is probably one that we're all familiar with. I'm about to do a Salesforce import, but the list itself is in rough shape, and I need to standardize it before it becomes in, because we know it costs a lot more to fix data issues on the back end instead of remedying them on the front end, which is kind of synonymous with the 110-100 rule, if anybody has ever heard of that. And a very common practice: get the data in, fix it later. And then lastly, which is one of the more unique and niche things that we help individuals out with, simply because not a lot of people know to look for solutions like this, which is I'm moving data from production to Sandbox or vice versa often, and it's taking me a really long time because of all the clunkiness, having to export it and import it. So these are some of the things that I see very often on my side of the table. So let's flip to the next screen here and see if anybody here is experiencing the same issues. So I'd like to know, do you guys bring in large sets of data to Salesforce on a routine basis? I think I already know the answer to this, but let's hear what you have to say and some examples here: webinars, trade shows, migrations. All right, we've got a couple people that don't, and I've got to imagine that your job is a little bit easier because it's one less thing to manage. So let's let these roll in here. All right. Yep. It's looking favored on the yes side of things, but we do have some individuals that do not work with new data. So good to know that we have representation on both sides of the spectrum here. And we can go ahead and move on to the next slide. And let's talk a little bit about how people are doing jobs like this today. Naturally, Data Loader, Data Wizard are the very large majority of people that I work with. Sometimes I hear of a Salesforce inspector, some workbench jobs, but for the most part, Data Loader and Data Wizard are how people are getting these jobs done. And they present their own inherent risks and kind of clunkiness, if we will. And I'd like to kind of lean on my colleague here, Asia, because we were just on the line earlier this week, and she was telling me how she's working through some trails for Data Loader right now. And she had some choice words for some of the clunkiness. Asia, you like to share?
First word, ill. Okay. Yeah, what I was learning when I was going through these trailheads, Alex, the thing that stuck out to me the most is the inability to only map columns of data that you wish to update. I could not believe like the clunkiness there, and just like the time consumingness of it. Like, what if I have a file? I only want to update one field. That means I would have to take that file and remove everything that I don't want to update or use as a key. So I just found that really interesting, that it required you to map every column on your file. You couldn't just map those ones that you wanted to make an update to. So yeah,
Yeah.
the word that came to my mind, Alex, was ew.
Yeah.
Gross.
And exactly. And when we start to think about scalable solutions to templatize these things. I mean, what if you're getting a list from a partner that has 15 rows on it? You only update 2. Now you have to manually make some changes to the spreadsheet. It'd be really nice if we could just select the fields that we want to map, have it in a template, and just ignore the other ones. So that's one good example. Even with Data Loader, you need record IDs to make the match. And oftentimes we don't have that record ID. We don't have that luxury. So we're left running exports, VLOOKUPs once again. And with Data Wizard, there's a little bit more capabilities, as you can see on the screen here, doing things like a name or an email match. But again, when we have to get a little bit more creative on how we match these records together, that's really limiting our options here. And not to mention just having to get CSV files. If anybody sends you an XLS file, having to tab those out, that's a little bit of a nuisance. It would be really nice to just be able to select the table that we want and move forward that way, as well as some other really cool things that we can do from the source perspective, which I'm planning to show you guys in just a second here. I think what we can do is we can head to the next slide. So let's talk about the love. And we've got a lot of love to share here, which is our importing module. And for a very boring history lesson, while I spin up my screen share here, I want to talk a little bit about this importing module because while you see it in representation as a small box in a larger offering on the DemandTools application, this used to be its own application in and of itself. And we created it specifically for teams that dealt with large sets of data often and had to pull it into their CRM environment. And for that, it has a lot of really cool bells and whistles to it. So one thing that I wanted to cover before we even jump into the module is our scenarios. We can templatize things. Data imports, data matches, deduplication, everything can be templatized in DemandTools so that you don't have to build it from scratch. So by clicking into my scenario here, it's already got my files selected, my fields mapped, my fields matched, and many other cool things that we're going to walk through in just a second here. But first small win, we're working with an XLS file. I've just selected the tab that I want to work with. One really cool thing is we can also pull from your Salesforce environments as a source, so you don't have to work with spreadsheets. This can work from Salesforce to Salesforce, meaning I just want to take information from my account table and update my contacts with it. This can also work prod to prod. It can work prod to sandbox. And again, you can automate and templatize these types of things. So you're just routinely pulling in and refreshing data over to your sandbox. Really cool piece there to get over some of the refresh limits if you're working with smaller sets of data. We're running an upsert here, and we're going to do match conditions because we don't have key fields, and we're matching on 3 objects. So unlike having to compare contacts and accounts together or leads separately or custom objects that represent people data separately, you can pull that all into one single scenario here and check for matches on all of those records. So already saving some sweeps there. And below, we've mapped our fields. We can choose when and where we want to update fields like Asia was mentioning. We don't have to map everything together. We can choose to not update certain fields in this third column. And we can also transform our data on the way in. So if you have issues with state formatting where you have validation rules that mean that they have to be in the 2-character country code, we can update those on the way in. We can proper case our first name so we're not yelling at anybody in email communications on the marketing side of things. A lot of really cool things that we can do there. And then Olivia also already talked a little bit about the matching. We have all of those great features in the importing wizard here as well. You can create your higher confidence matches that match on more fields. You can create your lower confidence matches that match on less fields and less identifiable fields, as well as our comparison types and engines that make things possible to match on unstandardized or nuanced data, like my name, for an example, Alex versus Alexander, KORPITA versus CORPETA. These types of inconsistencies happen, and we don't want that to limit your matches and insert new duplicates into your environment. And then lastly, when we're dealing with people data often, it's important to be able to take action on that people data because that's why we're putting it into our environment. So we can do things like campaign assignment right on the way in. You don't even need the campaign ID in the spreadsheet. You can just select it from a pick list of values here. You certainly can select it from this spreadsheet if you'd like to, but this is a simple way if the campaign's already created. And once you're done, you click preview. And you'll be able to review all of your changes or your updates before pushing that through, giving you a way to see both the spreadsheet data over here on the left-hand side, the matching criteria here first on the right, and then the matched records over here in Salesforce further to the right. So that's the importing module. That turns a clunky hate into a nice and simple love. Olivia, the screen share is back to you. And you're on mute.
Back to me on mute, Alex. I'm telling you, driving this thing is not my
You're doing great.
When I'm always one, like if someone's like, hey, do you want to chat? And they're like, how about a Zoom meeting? I'm like, yeah. And it takes me a few minutes and their Zoom link is already up. I'm like, I never win that race ever.
I'm right there with you though.
All right, Asia, bring us home. What
I
do you
am
got for us?
so excited to talk to you guys about this next piece of hate that I have with my data. I'll get more excited when I talk about the love, but we'll start with the hate. And that's, of course, deduping. I mean, everyone on this call can relate to duplicate records, what kind of damage they can cause your database, along with your employees as well. So the hate, what do I hate about duplicate records and what do I hate about that merging process? First off, these duplicate records, they cause issue for my sales teams, my marketing teams. They're damaging the customer experience. I've sent the same customer 5 of the same emails now. That doesn't look good. It's not a great experience for your customer either. My reporting isn't accurate. I'm manually merging records in Salesforce duplicate management That's super time consuming. If you think about it this way, Alex shared with me a great fun fact earlier this week that on average, CRM databases contain 30% duplication. That is a lot, and it's true. Manually merging each of those duplicate groups in Salesforce can take 3 minutes per duplicate group. So if you kind of just put those numbers in your head really quickly, how many records do you have in your database? 30% of those is duplicate, and you're going to spend 3 minutes per duplicate group to get those to merge. Nobody has that kind of time.
Shoving it under the rug.
Exactly. Let's just shove it under the rug and move on because we don't have time for that. Another hate that I have with merging is losing pertinent data, right? I know that only one record can survive, but there's data on that losing record that really means a lot to me. So either I have to manually pick and choose that, or again, I'm just keeping that data from my winning record, and stinks that I had to lose some of that really great data that I needed to, right? I hate that. And then lastly, just realizing I have the need to keep unique values from multiple fields, or I have the need to keep all values from my duplicate records into a single field on that winning record. So these are all the painful things that I hate about manual record deduping. So let's go to our next slide, Liv. All right, our poll question here. Have you ever not merged your duplicates because you were afraid of losing field data, or you didn't want to lose any specific field data from any of those records, right?
I think I did these polls the way I did just so they would be like really satisfying because I see that yes, go straight to
Yes,
the
that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not alone in this. Other
Yeah.
people hate it too.
Yes. But now we all
Yeah,
love
and we are absolutely getting a pretty resounding yes here on
it. I
this
mean,
poll question.
over 70% of the people on the phone call, they have been like, nope, I'm gonna leave that duplicate right where it is because I need some of that information and I don't know how to keep it all without keeping both records. So
Exactly. That's crazy. Like, well, I guess our team's just going to have to deal with it. They're going to have to look at both records to get what they need because we don't want to lose anything. And
right.
I
And to
get that, right? All the data is important. But luckily for you, I think you guys are about to fall in love with what I'm going to show you here in a minute. So we have an answer for that.
To make this a little bit more objective, I shared it earlier, but the 110-100 rule refers to data quality issues. It's $1 to prevent it at the source, it's $10 to correct it after the fact, and it's $100 to store it on an annual basis per record. So
Wow.
the common narrative is let it in, we'll deal with it later, but chances are it doesn't get dealt with later, and all of those costs start to add up. So
Yeah.
I
important,
love that
important
analogy.
objective measurement.
All right. Next
Very
screen
cool.
here.
All right, yeah, let's go to a next screen. Of course, everybody was saying that they aren't merging their duplicates because they don't want to lose that real good pertinent data, which is what we were expecting to see. And I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the options you have available in Salesforce duplicate management. The thing that I find the most cumbersome here is, again, that word manual, right? It just keeps popping up. It's manual. I don't want to have to manually merge my duplicates. It's extremely time consuming. Even when I am doing this manual merge, it's manual field selection, right? I can't say just keep the field that has this data. I'm having to go through each field on the record, compare which one is the one that's going to be more valuable to the organization. Again, adding more time, more manual effort when all I need to do is just get these dupes out of my system. And then lastly, Salesforce only allows merging of 3 duplicate records at a time. Well, what happens if there's 15 of the same record? Wouldn't you want to get all of those just merged at the same time instead of having to break that in 5 chunks of 3? Just seems like, again, another big waste of time and a super manual process. We hate all of those things. Let's go to our next slide, Olivia.
Are you going to show us the love now? Is that what we're having?
I am saying all that hate you have in your mind right now with what you just seen. Let's turn that around and show the love. Of course, you guys should be familiar that DemandTools does have a dedupe tool, but what I really wanted to focus on today with my love of deduping is field rules. So I'm going to go ahead and take over share really quickly. All righty. And you guys can see my screen?
We've got it.
Okay. Can you still see it?
Yep.
Okay, it opened on a different window and I wanted it right here in front of my face. So the dedupe module is what's going to help you guys identify your duplicates using those powerful match techniques that Olivia and Alex both showed you today in the other modules. Dedupe is the same process, right? You're creating match steps to identify what qualifies one record to be duplicative of two or more. So once you've identified your duplicates, now is where you can say, okay, I want to pick my winner. And that can be based off a winner rule where you could say, you know, I just want to keep the oldest record as my winner. You apply that. But again, we still have that fear of losing that pertinent field data. So what we're going to do there is we're going to jump into our field rules. I have some prepared for you. And I just kind of wanted to show you guys some of the field rules that I feel like a lot of people just don't know of the functionality that you can do when you're drilling into field rules. So field rules are super effective. Again, I feel like most people don't understand the full capability, but essentially field rules are going to allow you to create the perfect winning record with your desired field values from all of the duplicates in the group. So as an example, common use case here is, what if on my email address field, what if I have a group of 5 duplicates and I don't want to lose any of those email addresses that may be different between the records? So we have a field rule for that. You can locate your email field, which you guys saw me do easily by just typing it in. And within these drop downs, you'll have these rule overrides, right? This is overriding what your winner rule is doing on a field specific level. So you'll notice I chose the field copy unique option. That's doing exactly what it says. It's copying that unique email value over to an additional field on your record. You can even drill down further and put scoring on there. So I'm saying only keep that unique valued email where the bright verify status equals valid. So now I know it's only going to keep those unique emails that have a valid email address. Some other cool things that you can do with field rules is you can tell it to keep a field based off a specific value that's in that field. So here I'm just doing a simple custom scoring and I'm saying, keep the record type ID that equals this value. Now, on the other side of that, you can tell it to not keep values based off what's in the record. So on lead source here, I'm doing custom scoring again, but this time I'm saying if the lead source equals other, do not keep that value, right? We would never want to keep the value of other on a lead source. So you'll notice I gave it a little detractor score here, a -99. So that's going to be bad when DemandTools sees that, and they will not keep that lead source value of other. Some other things I like to point out, because again, I just think it's something that's not really widely known, is what we can do with number fields. So I have this random number field here, and you'll notice that on any number field, you also have the ability to sum the values between all records. Only keep the largest value, the smallest value, or you can even average values across all records as well. So just some really cool things there. Also, you can do some pretty nifty things with pick lists. You can do a use constant, meaning you might say, after these records merge, I want choice 1 to be listed on all of those winning records. So you can add constant values across all your winners. And then one last thing I wanted to show you guys is just some cool things that you can do with date fields. You'll notice here on a birth date, I've asked DemandTools to retain the most recently modified record's birth date. You'll notice some other things here. You can keep values from the oldest record, the newest. You can keep a common value. Just endless opportunities, guys, on what you can do with field rules. The last thing I wanted to show was the ability to combine field values. Everyone says they're so afraid of merging their records because they don't want to lose any data from their fields. Combine field values allows you to concatenate the data or append the data on any field that is mergeable. So I could click this box right here, and this will automatically apply to any mergeable field on my record. And it'll just keep all values from that field and separate it with the semicolon post merge. So again, tons of things you can do with field rules. I hope those few little examples I showed you guys is getting you to think of how lovely it can be when you merge your data with demand tools, because you're not losing any of that pertinent data post merge. Alex, Livy, anything else you guys wanted to add to that?
Field
Nothing
rules was like,
tactical, just that I'm feeling the love right now.
Good.
well, and field rules was just such a game changer when we came out with it. And you're right, a lot of people aren't aware of what you can do with it. So I was glad you showed it today, just so people are like, I mean, it helps as you're thinking through a problem that you encounter to know, like, you know what, there's a solution out there. Let me go and take a look. So just that having that awareness of what is available to you in the Salesforce ecosystem is powerful in and of itself. Maybe it's not something you're going to use right now today, but eventually we're all going to have to tackle these duplicates. We're all going to have to compare data. We're all going to have to feed our systems, you know, by importing information. These are things that we need to be prepared to do and to do them quickly and efficiently and accurately. Otherwise, we're just not going to do it. And we're going to hate it, and it will never turn to love.
Exactly. And I mean, the great thing about demand tools too, Olivia, is you don't have to keep rebuilding this every time. Every time I run my dedupe module, I don't have to come in here and rebuild this. I've saved this field rule, right? My data insight webinar field rule. So
Mhm.
when I'm ready to dedupe, I can just pick that field rule and go on my merry way. So
Yeah.
just know that all of that is saved and stored within the application. You don't have to keep rebuilding these things. And once you've built it once and you know that's how you want it to look in the future, every time you need to dedupe, it's just set it and forget it. You know, just load that scenario and go on your merry way.
I know. I
Sail off
did.
into the sunset.
Yeah, sail off right into the sunset on Valentine's Day with little heart clouds.
If YouTube burst into song, they're going to cut us off early.
Olivia, I mean, knowing our track record, we could pull out a rap here if we
I
wanted
mean, handstands, rapping, you know, song would be what it makes most sense next. All right, we hit our mark. We're at 12:37, so hopefully what we shared with you guys was helpful. There are a couple questions that I wanted to bring up. So let's see, Alex, this one was for you. Can you add campaign membership status with the import as well?
Absolutely. Short answer, yes.
Okay. And I think you had showed that you could either pull it from your spreadsheet if you had it listed in there, or you could just get a drop down of whatever campaigns you have active in Salesforce and decide, you know, this is what I want.
That's right. If it already lives in Salesforce, the easier option is to just grab it from the interface in a pick list style grab. Or if it's something that isn't in there, you can just insert it
Right.
with a spreadsheet value.
Okay. All right. And the next one is for you, Asia. If your duplicate records are related to the same object, is there a way around this to remove the relationship from the non-master record in the process of the merge rather than manually removing the relationship?
Yeah, so if I'm understanding that correctly, I think you're wondering about maybe like that parent-child relationship during the merge. But regardless, we are able, Demand Tools is able to account for that. Those relationships get broken during that merge process if it's necessary. And of course, you're not going to lose any of your related objects. Those are always going to roll back up to that winning record. Hopefully that's what you were asking about. But if you need to provide further clarification, or Alex, Olivia, if you're reading it a different way than I was, I immediately went to like child relationships.
Yeah, and I think the way I see it is we have parent record up here and then two duplicate records down here. We've identified this record as the winner. This guy we're going to say goodbye to. They just go. They're in the Salesforce recycling bin. New record stays down. There's no relationship to the non-master. That gets merged away.
Yeah, and I think the reason why that question asked is because that is a limitation of Salesforce. It does have issues merging records where there's that redundancy in that relationship. And DemandTools V, our new platform, actually, we built that into the platform to be sure that we could accommodate that issue. So yeah, DemandTools will automatically break that redundancy to prevent that error from occurring.
Right. All right, gang. Well, we are out of time. We held to our short and sweet on Valentine's Day. I really got to get over this theme and stop plugging it. We're at the end. They get it. We hate these problems, but we love our data. So thank you, Alex. Thank you, Ada, for being here with me today. Thank you, all of you, for sticking with us, coming back to Data Insight. Tell your friends, have them come out. And also, if you are DemandTools users, you should go to the Ask Me Anything on March 14th. It's an open series. You can ask questions of all of us, just whatever you want to know. Asia will be there. So we're all product manager. If you're part of our community, there is a forum out there right now too, where you could actually add questions to if you want. So, one of the things that we love doing here is talking with you guys, because we learn a lot about what you're up against, and also it's a lot of fun. But we want to be a resource. We want to be helpful. So if you have questions, if we don't have the answers for some reason with Asia on the call, I'm sure we'll have the answers. We'll find them for you. So it's always a good time to connect with you guys when it's, even a virtual event, maybe not always an in-person event. So keep that on your calendar, March 14th. And thank you again for being here with us today. I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar. You guys have a great rest of the day.
Bye, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Spread the love.